Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kelvin Womack of Deloitte and Kenji Yoshino of New York University School of Law.
Good afternoon, everyone, and it's an absolute honor, Dr. Roden, to have us here. So thank you for having us here and giving us the opportunity to share our big bet at Deloitte, which focuses on our people. Surprise, surprise, right? I mean, after all, people are the fuel of any organization's success. I am the Chief Diversity Officer. Kenji is in partnership with us on a big bet that we are very, very excited about that we're going to share with you this afternoon, focused on our people. So let's get into it. Okay. We are redefining inclusion at Deloitte. And we are redefining inclusion because we have to. Traditional inclusion programs where we all focus on race, ethnicity, culture, LGBT status, all of those things that we all know fall in our traditional programs are not enough. We really feel that what got us here won't get us there as we look to the future because, quite frankly, our people need more, and they need more sound leadership, from us. So we're on a relentless pursuit right now to ensure that we create an environment where all of our people feel like they can bring their authentic selves to work. And that requires intentional leadership on our part. So what we're going to share with you this afternoon is a great piece of research and work that Kenji and a colleague of mine, Christie Smith, have been leading at Deloitte that does exactly that. It's focused on helping our leaders understand what happens when people come to work and what happens when people don't bring their authentic self to work. I equate it to basically people spending energy on having to cover, and it's kind of like having people come to work with part of their brain tied behind their back because they're focused on covering and not releasing their full potential. So I'm going to turn it over to Kenji, and Kenji, if you can share with everybody what we're doing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kelvin, and thank you so much to all of you for your hospitality today. What I got in the last year, almost exactly a year ago today, was every researcher's dream, which is that I got a call from a colleague of mine in the industry who said, I think you have a really good idea, and I want to help you operationalize it and push it out into the world. That individual was Christie Smith, who is the colleague that Kelvin mentioned earlier at Deloitte. She is the managing principal of Deloitte University's Leadership Center for Inclusion. The idea in question had to do with a problem that we are both trying to solve in our own different ways. So the problem that we were trying to solve was what we called the frozen needle, which is that after decades of diversity and inclusion work in the Fortune 500 and beyond, the needle simply hadn't moved. Currently, only 1% of Fortune 500 CEOs are African American. Only 21% are women, and exactly none are openly gay. So when we asked ourselves why this was happening, we couldn't attribute it anymore to pipeline issues. What we hypothesized was that one of the tripwires to the top was coerced conformity and assimilation to traditional norms that had not been set by the new kids on the block who are trying to gain admission into the club. So this concept is a concept of covering. I take the term from the sociologist Erving Goffman, writing in 1963, and he defined covering as the practice of downplaying a known, stigmatized, or disfavored, or outsider identity. To sharpen ideas, the example that he gave was that of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So Roosevelt used to always make sure before his cabinet entered that he was seated behind a table. So he wasn't passing because everybody knew that he had a motor function disability, but he was covering. He was making sure that his less conventionally presidential qualities were in the background and his more conventionally presidential qualities were in the foreground of the interaction. So in my work, what I did is I dug a little bit deeper into this concept, and I disaggregated it along 4 axes, which you see behind you. And you also see my weakness for alliteration, because all 4 of these axes begin with the letter A. So appearance-based covering is when individuals engage in behaviors in order to mute their difference from the mainstream with respect to their grooming, their mannerism, or their attire. So one example that comes up over and over again from the African American community is African American women saying, I have to straighten my hair or I'll be treated extremely differently in a professional work environment. Note here that no other minority or ethnic group is barred from wearing their natural hair. Affiliation-based covering has to do with downplaying cultural attributes that mark you as an outsider, often because those cultural attributes will trigger unconscious or conscious bias on the part of third parties. So one classic example here is women being reluctant to articulate that they are parents in the workplace, because once they do, their professionalism is somehow on a discount. They're taken less seriously as workers, they're viewed to be less committed. Advocacy-based covering is what individuals engage in when they refuse to stick up for their own group. So that can run the gamut from not challenging an off-color joke made about a group all the way to sponsoring or mentoring somebody of your own group, lest you be accused of favoritism. So a veteran who doesn't challenge a joke that is against the military could be said to be engaged in this form of covering. And finally, association-based covering has to do with avoiding contact with individuals in your own group. So a gay individual who might be perfectly happy to present himself as gay at work and to be known as gay at work might still be very trepidatious about bringing a same-sex partner to a work function or joining a gay employee resource group or business resource group. So what Christie said to me was, great idea. Let Deloitte help you. Now, you have examples, we have data, right, or the capacity to gather it. So together, we crafted a 51-question survey. We pushed it out across 7 different industries. We got 3,000 respondents, and here are our initial results. So first of all, what we discovered in terms of incidence is that 61% of individuals reported covering along some dimension, one of these 4 dimensions. And there's something intuitive and counterintuitive about this number when you break it down. The intuitive part of it is that the traditionally underrepresented groups engage in more covering. They end up working their identity more than they work their jobs. Right? So if you look at African Americans, the number is 83%. If you look at the LGBT population, the number is 78%. If you look at women, it's 66%. If you look at straight white men, it's 45%. So you see that the degree to which individuals have to manage their identities at work is much higher for groups that are more recently admitted into the workforce than those who are traditionally seen as the nation's workers. The counterintuitive part of this should be the 45%. Because the question should be, how do straight white men cover? And if we dig into the qualitative data, we see that they cover along a myriad dimensions, including religion, including class, including veteran status, any variety of attributes. And one really powerful dimension of this finding that Kelvin and Christie and I have been trying to tout is that it finally creates an inclusion paradigm that is comprehensively inclusive. One of our respondents actually put it better than that when he said, this is finally an inclusion paradigm in which I can see myself. Because other traditional inclusion paradigms have, at best, cast me as a straight white guy as the knight who's supposed to come riding in and rescue everybody else. Or alternatively, at worst, have demonized me as a problem and the source of bias that needs to be overcome. And so what we see in this paradigm is that we can make common cause around our common desire for authenticity. So this is truly a paradigm that can engage all individuals within the workplace because it truly is about everybody's authenticity, everybody's human flourishing, everybody's individuality. Now, Deloitte, and I would say I share this bias, is very practical. We're very where the rubber hits the road kind of folks. So from our perspective, the next question to ask was, how much is this a point of pain for people? Because we have a no harm, no foul notion. So if covering is just kind of ornamental or tangential or trivial, very easy for someone to calibrate, then we don't really care, right? So we asked individuals how much this form of covering was detrimental to their sense of self on a scale of 1 to 7, with 4 being somewhat and 7 extremely. And as you can see behind me, 59% to 74% of respondents said that it's somewhat to extremely, was somewhat to extremely detrimental to their sense of self when they had to cover in these ways. And then finally, we said, okay, where is this coming from? And again, because we care about organizations can do as a practical matter, we explicitly took off the table covering demands that were coming from society at large, from families, from strangers on the street. And we said, just focus your attention for us, if you will, on your leaders and on your organizational culture. Not culture writ large, but on your organizational culture. And what we were nervous about here, and for me this actually was a risk, was that we were fearful that what we would find is that nobody would point a finger at a leader, and everyone would say, there's a demand that I conform here, but it's something in the water, it's something in the air, there's nothing we can really do about it because culture is sticky, and nobody really knows how to change culture except for through leadership. What we actually found was that the numbers were quite comparable, that 52% of respondents said this comes from our leaders. And as a really important footnote to that, 50% of the individuals who said that it came from their leaders also said that it diminished their sense of opportunities within the organization, and 49% said it diminished their commitment to the organization. So let's remember, people don't leave workplaces, they leave managers, right? And so if this kind of demand on somebody's authenticity or individuality is being made for no good reason, then that is going to be a serious problem for that organization. And 48%, a comparable but lower number, said that this demand came from the ambient culture. So what excites us about this research, and we can only give you a taste of it here, we have a white paper that is available to all of you. The numbers are slightly different because it relied on a smaller sample size, so we're presenting you with the freshest data today. But what excites me most about this, just to conclude before I throw it to Kelvin to talk about the solution deck that Deloitte has created, is first of all, it's a partnership between academia and the private sector, right? So, Larry Kramer was talking earlier about how important it is to not let universities be untapped resources for practical thinking. So that's one thing that's exciting about it from a macro level. From a more particular level, we do really believe that this is the next generation of diversity and inclusion because it includes all of us, so it is truly universal in its reach. And this is something that we cannot afford to ignore. According to the Center for Talent Innovation, only 17% of global talent, meaning individuals who have completed university worldwide, only 17%, 17%, are white men. So if we can't get this right, whoever does get it right will eat our lunch. The other point to make here is that as we mature as a society, we get more and more extreme work weeks. So the number of individuals who are working 50, 60 hours a week is only going up and up with every successive year. Right? So in a time period when you could clock out of work at 5 p.m. and go home and be authentic with your family, right, this project may have been less urgent. But in a time period when workplaces have become, to borrow another phrase from Goffman, total institutions, where people eat, sleep, socialize there, right, then you're either going to be authentic at work or you're going to be authentic nowhere at all. And so that's why we believe that this project is so important. That is why this is our big bet. Kelvin?
Kenji, thank you. So I'll wrap it up with just a couple of comments. So we're not just stopping with rolling this research and this work out to our own firm. We're also taking it out to our clients because we do want to make a bigger impact. We want to make an impact on the world. So this has taken on great flight with many of our clients. As you can see here, we're rolling out some solutions for our clients in addition to the things that we're doing with our people. And it's having an impact. And I think the best way I can leave you with a proof point of that is I just got back last night from an LGBT conference for our people out in Equal in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And a couple of our people walked up and they said that I feel more comfortable bringing my authentic self to work at Deloitte than I do in my real life. So we know that this is having an impact, and we're very proud of it. So we're going to continue doing it at Deloitte. We're going to take it out to the marketplace and share it with as many as we can. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to share this with you this afternoon.